Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new news roundup video. We're doing a lot of those recently, but today we're starting off with something that is very familiar to Superman's marketing, and that is the whole teaser for the teaser. And of course that is for Supergirl to build up hype for the release of the teaser trailer this week. And then we're going to get into the teaser trailer for The Boys that was released at CCXP over the weekend. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we have Paramount announcing the hostile takeover bid to buy Warner Brothers Discovery with a bid valued at $108.4 billion. And you know me, we've been getting into this quite a bit recently, so we're going to have to absolutely talk about what is going on there. I don't know if you're going to see a future Boba in this video, just because stuff seems to be like bursting at the seams recently with regards to news. But if you want to support your boy with how we are just tapping at that keyboard like those freaking memes, leave a like. It would be greatly appreciated. And consider subscribing, of course, to stay up to date with everything. So, Supergirl. I had a lot of you guys asking me, hey Boba, where's your video of this? Where's your video for the teaser of the teaser? Well, you got it here now. And, you know, with Supergirl, we suspected, if you've been watching my previous videos, that the trailer would indeed be released this week. And it's true. They showed a bunch of press and content creators the trailer. Some attended an in-person event with Craig Gillespie, the director, Milly Alcock, the star, obviously, with also, of course, James Gunn and Peter Safran in attendance, as you can see from these photos from Phase Hero. Now, other content creators got to see the trailer through a digital viewing. I didn't get to see it. I tried seeing it. I tried hitting up Warner Brothers UK, but that hurts, man. That hurts. And some people say that I have like access shillism to stuff like this. Well, clearly not. Now, all jokes aside here, I'll be watching it right alongside you guys, but also at this event and also on the press stuff online, there was a full Q&A with Milly Alcock, Craig Gillespie, and James Gunn, which will be shared alongside the release of the trailer later this week. So in addition to the trailer breakdown that I'm going to do, I will also be going over whatever kind of good nuggets of insights that we get out of the Q&A. Now, the official teaser for the teaser trailer says trailer drops this week, but word on the street from insiders say that it is intended to drop on December 11th. But some have wondered that, okay, well, maybe they didn't put a date in the actual teaser trailer just in case they want to release it at some other time because of other expected big trailers that might be releasing on the 11th, such as Avengers Doomsday, as according to Daniel RPK, some kind of Disney trailer is also intended to release on the 11th. Doesn't guarantee Avengers Doomsday, but you know, like everyone's kind of talking about it. So first of all, let's go over my thoughts on this brief teaser. Now we've got that stuff out the way. So we see Kara basically at the equivalent of like this kind of outer space bus stop waiting for what could be her transport to arrive to take her to wherever she's intended. Now, I don't want to jump the gun here from just literally 5 seconds of actual footage in this teaser, but you can probably tell that the movie is going to have quite a different feel to it compared to James Gunn's Superman. Now, don't get me wrong, when I say that, it's obviously all in the same canon and continuity, but Supergirl is all about Kara's adventure that takes place in various locations in space. Like, stuff gets crazy in those comic book panels, which is one of my most anticipated aspects of this movie, is just how out there spacefaring and cosmic things could get with the visuals. So I think they will be teasing quite a bit of visually effectsy kind of stuff in the trailer, because that's one of the things that they would have to try and nail above a lot of other things for this movie. But picking up with a shot like this on some kind of remote planet to then this nice wide shot here of the transport ship arriving, you do immediately get a different vibe, and rightfully so. Like, this movie was not directed by James Gunn. It was directed by I, Tonya and Cruella's Craig Gillespie, and also written by Anna Nogueira. So people who have been wanting to see what else the DCU can offer outside of a project handled entirely by James Gunn will be seeing that first with Supergirl. I mean, you know, still the House of L overall. There could be some similar vibes compared to how, you know, different Clayface could be, but this should still be something that should show a bit of a difference tonally. Now, again, like, this is only 5 seconds of footage, so there's only so much I can extract here, but I do love how that first shot features Kara with the gust of wind just blasting her hair all over the place, like coming from the ship. And I also love how her hair is also a lot more curly in this, which matches the Woman of Tomorrow comic book compared to the hair she had at the ending of Superman. So she's just sat there like so nonchalantly in her trench coat, which she wears a lot in the comic, but notice how she hasn't got the Supergirl suit on underneath. Now that just intrigues me, just because unless you don't include the flashbacks to her time on Argo City in the comic, in the present day scenes in the comic, she's pretty much always in the Supergirl suit. So to me, and also given the fact that she's wearing those massive shades, if you will, she's likely got a banging headache, you know, she's maybe suffering from a hangover and is doing the equivalent of a space bar crawl, and she's getting a ride here to perhaps the next place, maybe because her powers aren't functioning as well due to a red sun, which is also how she's even able to feel the effects of alcohol in the first place. Some have even suggested that she could actually be asleep here under those shades. And just in case you're new here, like, a lot of the reasons for this is because of where Kara is at when we first see her in the DCU and how she's dealing with a boatload of trauma from the past, like a bit of an identity crisis as well, given, you know, that she's on Earth now where her cousin's already Superman, but it mainly stems from her past, which this movie is going to dive head over heels into to contextualize why she is basically at this point, compared to the whole Supergirl you might have in your head kind of thing. And yeah, like that's me kind of directly making a point to those who are like, oh my god, drunk Supergirl, what the hell? Like, this is so James Gunn. Like, you know, what's completely flying over their head is where the character is at after what they've experienced. If I had even experienced half of what Kara experienced with Krypton, Argo City, and I was like, coming up to my 21st birthday, you don't think I'm going to get a bit pissed, you know, and have a few bevies, if you know what I mean, and maybe struggle through that? Not that you should cope that way, but you know what I mean. People are acting like it's this alien concept. I didn't, you know, she's an alien, but you get what I'm saying. It's not outlandish as some people make out, and it's actually a pretty in-touch approach to the character that the comic book gets into. This is also a long shot, and as I always say, adaptations don't copy and paste, so I of course expect the movie to add new bits into the adaptation of the Woman of Tomorrow comic this movie is based on, but I do wonder if this part here is just us seeing a portion of the movie of what Kara has been up to, like drifting around before she inevitably ends up at the place where she bumps into Ruthie, and that's truly where the quest begins from there on out. It's also totally possible that this is her own ship that she's called in remotely to pick her up, perhaps similar to the one we see towards the beginning of the comic where Ruthie follows her to it. Not that I'm saying that this is the same scene, but just, you know, the same ship that she uses to get out and about. Now, the movie's logo is fairly similar to Superman's like logo, and I've seen a lot of people say, well, that's just the Superman symbol. Why? And it's like, bruh, like, that's the House of L symbol, and you do know that Kara, you know, is, either way, here they are side by side, and yes, there's similarities, obviously, but when you kind of put them side by side, the way they're portrayed is a little bit different. You know, Superman's is a much more clean and pristine version of it, whereas Kara's has a bit more of a rough and dirty look to it, not to mention the borders on the logo are a bit different, which I just think is to show how the characters differ right now on even the most basic level. So people who have already seen the trailer are really hyping it up, even though there's an embargo where they can't talk about it like right now. It's very evident that they're pretty gassed up about it. Obviously, that remains to be seen, but yeah, clearly I'm really looking forward to this. I've been a supporter of the casting of Milly Alcock since day one. I know not everyone has been. Fair enough, by the way. You know, you need to see the movie or you need to see some marketing, but ever since House of the Dragon, I was like, I see exactly what they're looking for with, you know, Kara from Woman of Tomorrow in Milly Alcock. And ever since we got scraps along the way, saw her in Superman, And now this, I really do think that this has the potential to be something pretty damn special. I'm hoping that we get to see Lobo featured, but I think if we do see him, it might be kept quite minimal. And overall, I'm just expecting this trailer, this teaser trailer, to just really set the tone of the movie. Also, just with how it differs with the way we saw Superman. So just flinging us into this adventure with Kara and how much character story there is to mine there in this film's plot. I think if they nail that, people are going to absolutely fall in love with Milly Alcock's Kara and the journey that will, I'm sure, be like kind of batshit crazy on all kinds of levels in the present day scenes, but it will be emotional as well, just because that is intrinsic to the character's backstory with what she experienced on Argo before getting sent away in her own little pod like Superman. Now, I'm still unsure if I'm going to do a reaction or just kind of maybe go straight into a breakdown, because I think there's going to be a Blondie song featured on the trailer, which, if you've ever heard a YouTube bitch about this before, it will get blocked and copyright claimed right off the rip. So, you know, we'll see, but please don't hate me just in case I go straight into the breakdown. Maybe I'll record a bit of myself and like show that in the breakdown. I don't know. Either way, really looking forward to diving deep into our first actual proper look with the teaser trailer coming maybe Thursday, but could be any day now. All right, so up next in the land of Oi. Over the weekend at CCXP, we got our first look at the final season of The Boys, which I would have done my own separate video for, but I was just so busy at the time. But it is great seeing our first look at the season 5 teaser coming April 8th, 2026. We're going to be very busy considering Daredevil and everything else, but it's safe to say that we know this final season of The Boys is going to get pretty damn crazy. And overall here, I really like the way that this teaser was cut. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing how things go down in this iteration, given that they're going to change things up. I know I say it all the time, but I remind everyone because I see a lot of people always like, oh, they're going to do this because it happened here. But adaptations don't copy and paste. So with the ending and how things go about getting scorched earth between Butcher and Homelander, it's going to be super intriguing to see how they handle that. But to run through a bit of a breakdown here of the biggest highlights, if you will. At the beginning of the trailer, we hear say that we aren't surviving this war and that they're all dead men walking. We then see Huey, who seems to be living among all of these other people in this camp, you could say. And yeah, it looks like this is gonna be where people who oppose the new status quo are all round up and sent to. And I mean, we can literally see how this is guarded here. It says Vernon Correction Services Corporation, firm but fair, with Homelander's frickin' face plastered all over it. And even those kept there wear the stars and stripes mirroring Homelander's suit. So yeah, if you guys remember the end of The Boys season 4 with how we saw Huey, Frenchie, all get rounded up, like there's a bunch of people like this being sent to places. And so with a bunch of people in Supe custody, including Huey, it looks like later on Annie is helping maybe break him out, possibly with the help of some Gen V characters, and even maybe A-Train, as we get to see some cool speedster, kind of like entering flash time shots of him helping out. And just with everyone together, from Huey and Annie, likely right after the breakout, just kind of hanging out here. Then we see Kimiko and Frenchie reuniting after that heartbreaking moment where Kimiko saw Frenchie get taken away. And then Butcher with the boys. I assume the season starts off this way, and once they've got Huey and Frenchie and out of Supe control, they're all united together again, and then they go freaking kamikaze mode in order to take out Homelander. And we know this is going to be a kamikaze mission, you know, as was basically saying, dead men walking, because characters are going to die. Like, do not get attached. I mean, you might already be attached, but you know, like certain heads are going to be detached, to say the least. Now, granted, this is just a teaser, but we seemingly have a much less locked into Dark Butcher mode version of Billy this season, compared to, again, when he was driving off at the end of season 4. Then, not to mention, just compared to how broke up things previously were, it really does feel like the final season is taking a return to form as they ride out. I have seen some people kind of say, well, I don't know how I feel about that. I think that's kind of fair in one sense, but in the other sense, we do have things to learn in episode 1 itself. Like, sure, the trailer looks like they've kind of made the past season a bit of a fever dream, but, you know, to be fair to the show, we don't know what happens, but it could also be totally possible they kind of wanted to get into the boys again and just, you know, like, let's all team up together and, you know, try to take out Homelander without really trying to, like, figure out all this other stuff because we've only got so many episodes to end the show. Now, some other standout moments before getting into that Homelander punching scene were, of course, Ashley is back. We know that she's gonna be back with powers, and I don't know if she's wearing another wig, but I was kind of hoping to see her crawling around like Smeagol or something, but who knows what surprises they've got up their sleeve for her this season. I mean, she could be a little Smeagol with her powers. You know, this could just be her in, you know, fully presented mode. But as soon as she, like, goes full-on power mode, she could be, yeah, full-on Gollum. And Ashley has a new job by the looks of it, given that she appears to be taking questions at a press conference at the White House. Now, next up, we have a shot of Sister Sage, I assume just likely cooking up her plan even more. Really actually intrigued to see where things go next with her, given how instrumental she's already been, and now we have Homelander basically already on top. Like, what does she want to see come about next? Then we get a shot of Homelander with Soldier Boy, and even later on, if you pair this scene, it looks like they might be kind of working together now. Now, maybe from Soldier Boy's perspective, he just doesn't want to be put back into his cryo-type chamber, so he's willing to maybe hear his son out if he wants to stay out. But I do still wonder if he could be instrumental in taking Homelander out, but that does feel a bit too straightforward. Then, speaking of Jensen Ackles, we do have Jared Piccadilly here with Soldier Boy. And we know that Misha Collins is going to be in this season too, so yes, as we all know, a supernatural reunion, although right now we don't have any major details on the characters just yet. Now, the next thing that stood out to me most was seeing Ryan again here. And it looks like these guards are getting taken out Batman style to then maybe getting fried seconds later. Now, we can't forget how he had a much darker turn at the end of last season. Like, he killed Grace Mallory, but we didn't exactly see him go off hand in hand with Homelander. Now, what I'm saying here is that it would be pretty interesting if he's not only not aligned with Butcher, but maybe we actually have Homelander trying to get his son here, and maybe he sent these people after him, but then they end up getting butchered. I don't know. But a lot of people are speculating about that scene when Homelander is just punching and punching this mystery person. And could it be Ryan? Like, has Homelander given up at this point? As we know, Homelander doesn't exactly have a bunch of patience. I know he gets a bit weird about family, like his dad and Ryan here, his son, but maybe, just maybe, he's done with Ryan at this point. Like, the hesitation is the thing that a lot of people are pointing out. Like, after all of those initial punches, he does pause right before his final strike, and then kind of holds it there for a few moments. It's almost like in Homelander's head, he's like, you know, this is a shame, didn't want to have to do this, but I guess let's continue though. It is what it is. Now, first of all with that, I was kind of thinking who could take punches from Homelander like that other than maybe a couple of people like Ryan and maybe Soldier Boy. So it could also totally be Soldier Boy who ended up flipping on Homelander again. And for the same reasons we just kind of went over, he's like, well, you know, it is what it is. I don't have to keep you around anymore. I kind of had a shred of attachment, but you're not going back into the cryo chamber anymore. You're basically, I'm gonna Omni-Man the living crap out of you, or my son. But if it's you, Dad, then you're going down. I don't need to keep you around. But people have rightfully pointed out that there was maybe some heat vision-esque damage on Homelander's chest here, so it could be Ryan. I don't know. But there are other suggestions, because one thing I kind of ruled out immediately, which I kind of walked back a little bit, is that it is totally possible that it is another supe. Now, whether that be A-Train to whoever else, other supes can, you know, they can have like super strength and invulnerability to an extent, and maybe take some punches from Homelander, but obviously only so many, as after this many, it's whoever it is, even if you wanted to say A-Train or, you know, Annie or someone like that, just for example's sake, it's gonna end up like Negan and Glenn levels of gruesome all over again. So let me know your thoughts on this teaser trailer for The Boys Season 5. Just in case you're brand new here, I have been reviewing it every season the past few years, so I'll hope to have you there when this hits our screens in April. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, a spicy story to end off today's video. It's kind of like, boy, my boy, the last timestamp in my breakdown of the Netflix deal video I did was something like, it's not over yet, Paramount isn't happy. And then boom, Paramount come in clutch, and here we are. To the point of where they've even launched a whole website dedicated to it called www.strongerhollywood.com, where basically Warner Brothers shareholders can find additional information about the whole proposal, why their offer is superior, and why Netflix's isn't, just kind of judging by all those crosses there. On Monday, Ellison's Paramount Skydance announced it has commenced on an all-cash tender offer to acquire all of the outstanding shares for Warner Brothers for $30 per share. Now, this is the same terms it offered in its December 1st bid submitted to the Warner Brothers Discovery Board, but as we know, they still went with Netflix. But the issue is now, as Variety point out here, Paramount's announcement comes after Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery revealed their binding agreement Friday under which Netflix would buy it. And we're going to get into that in just a second and what the fallout of that could be. Ellison himself said in a statement, Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders deserve an opportunity to consider our superior all-cash offer for their shares in the entire company. Our public offer, which is on the same terms we provided to the Warner Brothers Discovery Board of Directors in private, provides superior value and a more certain and quicker path to completion. We believe the Warner Brothers Discovery Board of Directors is pursuing an inferior proposal which exposes shareholders to a mix of cash and stock, an uncertain future trading value of the global network's linear cable business, and a challenging regulatory approval process. We are taking our offer directly to shareholders to give them the opportunity to act in their own best interests and maximize the value of their shares. So if the shareholders listen to this, and it would obviously have to be looked at as enticing by the majority of shareholders for it to get somewhere, that could indeed derail the whole Netflix deal. However, Warner Brothers would have to pay a breakup fee penalty, if you will, from the negotiations to Netflix, which were meant to be exclusive, which is around, I believe it was said to be $5.8 billion if they ended up rejecting it in favor for now Paramount's hostile bid, which is just, again, something that needs to be taken into account anyway with Paramount's new bid. The fact that if they, cancel, then it's kind of like, all right, well, who's going to handle the whole cost of this breakup? Now, Netflix would have the chance to counter this new bid from Paramount, but that's kind of too early to lean into right now, as we need to wait to see how they react to this unsolicited offer, if Netflix will then bounce back, it's a very, the more I think about it in my head, it's, because Netflix aren't acquiring what Paramount want to acquire. So you need to value those two different things in accordance with what's going on here. But, even skipping to the next part, regardless, this puts a whole new wave of pressure on the sale process, obviously. But with Paramount, there is still a regulatory review process that will absolutely happen, even though they're quite confident that it will go swimmingly smooth given the favor of the Trump administration. But regardless of that, it would still be a long process, as we've discussed before. This would be a huge acquisition, especially with Paramount wanting to purchase the entirety of Warner Brothers, not just its streaming and studios. Then the hostile bid might make things internally for Warner Brothers fairly complicated. For example, you might have some board members contest this. You might have even some other shareholders among all the shareholders contest this takeover. And then, when you kind of poke around with that, it gets messier and messier. Right now, unless you see a future Boba, update, we need to wait to see what Warner Brothers potentially says in a statement to this, what shareholders think, if it could entice them. I think a lot of us, again, saw this kind of thing coming, but it is just awkward, when the other day, you know, Netflix and Warner Brothers, everyone's putting out this information that kind of how things are going to go. Oh, you know, there was a press thing even put out with James Gunn and DC Studios and Peter Safran and David Zaslav's comments on James Gunn and Peter Safran and how things could go at Netflix with theatrical distribution, or maybe the lack of theatrical distribution with what Ted thinks about movies, and, you know, maybe how the cinema is a dying place, which is peeving, or should I say pissing, a lot of people off, and to the point of thinking that at some point in the future Netflix would take a step back and then another step back the more and more the years roll by. If you're wondering about my opinion on, but Boba, could the shareholders buy this? And they do pay the breakup fee because ultimately they're getting this much more money and it is a wholesale. I don't know. I really don't know if, like, you know, the hostile bid would work. There are challenges in either direction. There are, you know, things that Paramount would be offering that would be enticing to some shareholders. Like, don't forget that some people at the very tip top are thinking about the money. So never say never, but there are other things to take into account that might be like, yeah, but like, I can't be us though. And then they still basically piss off David Ellison and they're like, yeah, cool, but no, bro, sorry, man. Like, we're gonna have to wait and see. I wouldn't rule anything out though, is probably my final words on it for now, when it comes to who actually ends up on top. But that is everything from me in today's video, guys. If you're still watching right now, let me know your thoughts on each story, or maybe if you only watched 1 or 2 timestamps, down in the comments below. Would really appreciate a like, especially if you're hearing my voice right now. That means you've made it to the end of the video. I really do appreciate it if you have done that. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.